Hello everyone. So it has finally come the time for me to fix the engine in my supercharged Honda. Around February 10th, I believe, I had an overheating issue. I replaced the head gasket on it, and it turned out that the engine was cracked. These engines tend to crack over extreme heat, and I pushed it because I was on a road trip. I drove from here to Missouri, and halfway through started overheating, and there was nothing I could do. I was in the middle of the trip, and I said screw it, I'm gonna keep pushing it. And even though I was trying to maintain water in the cooling, and it was leaking water, I mean it was pushing exhaust through the cooling system because of the failure on the head gasket. It didn't survive. It overheated a little bit too much, and the engine cracked. Once I get to the teardown of the engine, I'll show the crack and where it typically happens. This is a typical problem for these engines. For those that have been extremely overheated, I've seen that's been the number one issue on these. But as far as cracking, that is. So I've been busy doing other things, so I haven't been able to get to it. But now that I have some time, I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling this engine out, documenting the process. Obviously, before I even start, I gotta pick up all this mess because I've been working on other cars. Back here, finally, I've got the I got an engine block that I will be using to swap everything over from. I checked it. Hopefully, this one doesn't have any compromised castings, and it'll last longer. So another K20C3. However, if this engine block fails, will be unfortunately going to a K24, even though I don't want to put a K24 in my 8th gen. So the car does run, the car does start, the car does move. However, because the engine block is cracked, it's leaking water into itself, and it's also got a small leak that it leaks to the outside, which I will go over once the engine is torn apart. So I'm going to go through the process of taking the engine out, removing the components that are required. I'm going to pull the engine from the top. I don't do that bottom stuff, that's just too much work. So I'll be pulling the entire engine and transmission from the top. I will be disconnecting all the wiring, taking out the supercharger, draining the fluids, taking out the subframe. And well, I might not pull the subframe, I'll just do the axles because there's no need to pull the subframe. However, I will be obviously pulling the engine out, tearing the engine apart, going through a full meticulous inspection of all the components inside of it, because I'm going to be trying to reuse the most of the items that I can. Hopefully, since the car's been sitting, there's nothing rusty inside, because I don't want to be getting new parts for it. Hopefully everything's been safe, because I have been starting it and letting the water evaporate and so forth, trying to prevent some of the rust. But yeah, first thing I'm going to do, which will not be on camera, is picking up my mess, organizing the garage in order for me to place all these components out of the way, because I do have that one halfway put together, and I really don't feel like working with that right now, and I don't want to leave that car outside to put stuff here. So I'm just going to organize, rearrange some things, and make room in order for me to work everything I gotta do, pull the engine out. And then once the engine is torn apart, I can take the replacement block to the machine shop, have it bored out to the size of the pistons that are in there, and go from there. But I'm trying to use at least 95% of the components, because I know there's going to be something that's going to maybe worn down, or something that should be replaced, even though that engine barely has 2,000 miles on the engine build. So yeah, it sucks that I have to redo everything again. But a lot of my friends want to see this car back on the road, and I've been procrastinating. And some guys want me to go to the track with it and play around with them and stuff like that. No diddy. And hopefully we get this car put back together as fast and accurately as possible, because I do tend to work pretty fast on my cars. The only thing that's going to be holding me back is going to be parts that I might need to order for it, and or machine shop time. Hopefully the machine shop is not backed up, being that it's not actively the racing season. A lot of people's engines are out of the machine shop, so I should be able to get mine in and out fairly quickly. Well, with that being said, I'm going to start my cleanup. And when you see this clip again, it should be fairly organized. Alright, so I did some cleaning and tool organizing. I'll probably get to that half of the garage later, because right now I'm not going to be using some of that stuff to get this started. So my current game plan is going to be to remove the front bumper, the front cowl and radiator's upper support, the cowl cover and support as well, and I'm going to obviously lift the car off the ground to begin the removal of the engine. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. I will not, talk too much about the removal process of this stuff. I'll just basically gonna go ahead and do it. But basically what I will be doing is I'm going to lift the car up, I'm going to put it on jack stands, I'm going to remove the two front tires, put them under the car just to get them out of the way. Then I'm going to start removing the front bumper. This car, I've always been very meticulous about ensuring that I have all my clips and screws and nuts and bolts everywhere, so it will have everything to get undone in order to remove it. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get started on removal and disassembly to get the engine out. Alright, so to begin lifting the car, what I will be doing is that I will be lifting it in the front. There's a section right here of the front subframe. It's got a hole in it, and this section right here is the lift point. So I'm going to lift the front of the car with my jack, and in order to lift the entire car at once, and then I'm going to place the two jack stands in the bottom section. Alright, so I was gonna go higher at first, but then I remembered that the last time I did this, I had an issue where my engine lift was too high, and I was giving me issues getting the engine out of the car. So I gotta remember to keep the lift point low to get the engine out. And since I won't be removing the subframe, I don't need that much space under set to do the axles and the header, which is most of the stuff I need to do from the bottom. Okay, so for the removal of the wheels, I'll just be using my 19mm socket with my little impact here. These are the stock lug nuts from Honda. They're the Mugen lug nuts, so it's your standard 19. Just a quick FYI, if you own a Mugen, for those of you that don't know, the factory lug nuts, yeah, mine are a little rusty looking, but they are not the acorn shape. Alright, so if you ever get Mugen wheels, do not use factory Honda lug nuts. You have to use the OEM Mugen ones, or you can get tuner lugs and they'll work, but that's besides the point. Moving along. My garage is pretty tight, even though it's a two-car garage, simply because I have a lot of stuff in here. So I do my best with the space that I have. Alright, the next step I'll be taking is removing the axle nut, and that's going to be a 36mm. Alright, and then just gonna take it off and do the other side. The last time I assembled my car, I made sure I lubed everything, so as you can see, the axle's nice and loose, so I don't have to fight with it. However, if I did, I would just get my either 3-pound or 5-pound hammer with a center punch in there, and you just hit it and spray around it to get it to break loose. But once it's loose, then you know, once we undo the lower ball joint, we'll be able to move this assembly out of the way and disconnect the axle. But for now, go on to the next side. Alright, that's all I'm doing with the suspension and stuff right here for now. We're going to go ahead and start removing the front bumper. Now, the front bumper removal, what I will have to do is remove this cover, which I have to remove this clip, that clip, and this clip, which will allow me to flex this out of the way and give me access to the 2 screws that are up here for the front bumper. I'm removing the clips depending on which ones you may have. It's fairly simple. I have the factory style because I've replaced most of my clips by now because I have broken them all. The reason I like these ones is because of their price. I get them off eBay and I get them in bulk, so every time I break them, I just get new ones. But this one, if you can see, have the metal locking. Alright, you can see that, hopefully. But that metal lock is what keeps everything together. These are specific for the top. Alright, now for the for this ones right here, there's different ways you can pry them up, but what I like to do, I grab this right here and I go up and they just come loose. And if they break, same thing, I have replacement ones for them. Alright, removal of this front cover. You have to be careful because you can scratch these corners, but it's fairly simple. You gotta get them out of the way right here and come up. Once you get it up, you start getting to the point where only the release lever for the hood is holding it down. And what I do is I tilt it and just come out, because I'm trying to prevent scratching the grill and the fender tips. All right, so that's how you get this piece off. These are the screws I was talking about that are under. Now you can see that my bumper is split there, but that's my fault for over tightening it. But you gotta remove that one right there and this one right here. Once those two are out, we're going to remove the screw in there. I don't think you can see it. And let me see, that's just holding the, yeah, this is just holding the lip, so don't worry about those here. Same thing on the other side. It's gonna be a screw here, right in there. Phillips is in mine, depending on what you have on yours. Okay, and in the bottom, I will have to remove this one right here. That one doesn't do anything. So this one, not that one, and all of these going across. And I will also be removing this piece, so I will also remove these ones right here in the middle, and this one here and this one here, so I can get this plastic piece out. You can see the clips, because these right here are hooked, are going into my lower radiator support, and these right here are going to my front subframe. All right, so I will be removing those to include that one. But this one you don't have to. This one right here on both sides, the second one, it just holds this in place. You can see I missed this the last time I did it, so next time I put this together, I just make sure that this little piece is held by that. But just like the other side, we'll be also taking out these two right here and removing this. Now you gotta be careful because this right here is it's got a slot that goes into right here. You don't want to just rip it out. You gotta take it out slowly and pop it out of there so you don't break your covers. Alright, so on the Honda Civic Mugen SI, these are 10 mils. On your non-Mugen models and base models, these are going to be I think it's our 6 mil hexes, but Allen wrenches you can use also. But on this car, it comes with 10 mils. I didn't install my little screws last time I did this. They must be inside the car. We'll skip taking out the screws. We'll have to start taking out the clips. Alright, real quick. The way I like to take these out is that I slide a flat tip and I pry it out. Since my car was put together not too long ago, a lot of my clips are gonna come out fairly easy. Alright. But like I said, if they break, I just install new ones on. A lot of these clips are different sizes, different lengths. So if your clips are not holding properly, you probably got either too short or too long. So you gotta make sure you're removing the right ones. Continue taking off the bottom ones for now. Alright, something to take into consideration about your clips is that when you remove them, you want to make sure that you haven't broken the top part. And in the bottom, you want to make sure you got all 4 legs. If your legs are missing, just put a new one in. Alright, I mean, with time, they do spread out. So if they become hard to install or remove, just put a new one on. These right here, like the ones on the top, you can see that it's got the metal spreaders. I use these specifically to hold the plastic on plastic, because since they at the top the metal spreader comes out, it'll grab everything together nice and firm. All right, so I use this on the plastic, and then the ones that are just metal, plastic into metal, I use the regular ones. Just FYI, it's my preference, it's how I do it. It's been so long since I took this apart that I don't remember what the originals may have been, but all of these are Honda style grommets. Alright, so the next step that I took was to put some painter's tape on these corners of the headlights. My headlights are scratched right here, and the reason for that is because the Mugen grill, when it comes out, it just rubs against this headlight right here. So I'm trying to prevent scratches or any more scratches, because like I said, my headlights are already scratched right here, and I also did the other side. So now we're going to proceed on removing the bumper, and I still got my clips intact, they have never broken. And to loosen this, all you do is just reach under it and you just jolt it, so you pull and it comes off, and try to keep it away from there so you don't scratch this. I should have put tape on it, but it's fine. I never scratched that before, so I'll be fine. Same thing on this side. You just grab and pull, and then once it's loose, now you can grab the entire bumper and start sliding it off the car. My has fog lights, and since I'm doing it by myself, I gotta be careful, but I gotta disconnect the fog light connector, which is in this area right here. There's clips under your headlight on both sides, and they grab the bumper. So when you gotta also, like you did on the side with the jolt, you gotta do it here, but you gotta be careful, because if you do it wrong, especially if the bumper is hot, be mindful of that. If the plastic is hot and you pull too hard right here, you can rip that plastic off right here, and then your headlight bracket will not hold your bumper. So be careful with that. So what I do is I pull forward from the back, and it comes loose. And now I'm going to bring it down and disconnect the fog light switch, connector, and the bumper is free. Alright, so the next step that I'm going to take is to remove the lower plastic cover. And like I mentioned, it's a little section is going to be in here. You can see on the other side, this is that clip. Well, it's not really a clip, but it's like a wedge, and you don't want to like rip that out. So what I'm gonna do is try to remove it without breaking it. So I will twist it out that way and it should come right out. But this is what that wedge looks like. Alright, so that's why I say you want to tilt it that way, but this is wider than the hole, so you still got to pull it out. And since all the clips are off, same thing on this side, and we'll just pop right out. There. And the lower shield is out. Trying not to scratch my inner one. There. Okay, the next step I'm going to take is that I'm going to drain the radiator. For those of you that are not aware, and if you are, okay, but this is the drain plug. So all I'm going to do is put a bucket under it, and I'm going to turn this counterclockwise until it starts draining. I will not take the plug all the way out. I'll let it drain slow because I don't want just water going everywhere. Alright, since we're already here and I will be disassembling the motor, I'm also going to go ahead and drain the oil. Let's see how milky it may be. And as you can see, it is definitely freaking caramel mocha. It is so unfortunate because, like I mentioned, this was a new engine build, and I believe that on one of my little Mexico nights, I over boosted because I kept the foot on the gas pedal, and I also did 5 races back to back without cooling, so it put an undue stress on the engine. I should have slowed it down, cooled off, and then do it again, but you get what you pay for, and I sent it and I got it. Now we finish, wait for this finish to drain, and we'll continue. Okay, a quick side note before we continue. So this is a TVS Merc Racing 1900. All right, you see right here, it's a HTV 1900, but TVS 1900. The blower assembly, it's a Merc Racing kit, but this blower is a Harrop blower. All right, with the Harrop blower, in order for it to fit on the 8th gen Civic, you have to bend this up. All right, you can see over here it's nice and flat, and over here it's tilted up. So I bent this up, and it allowed me to clear without cutting it, because I didn't want to cut it. So I did was the bend, and with the cover, it covers that spot. However, that's a 1320. The 1320 is obviously slimmer. You can probably tell that it's a little bit smaller. So with the 1320, you don't have to bend up that upper radiator support. All right, this is my other project. It used to be a B18 C5 supercharged, but that one had an unfortunate overheating moment as well, because I do push my cars a little harder than anybody else would, because I got spares. So if I blow it up, I don't care. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and continue going on with the disassembly. Another quick side note, so I do have another spare motor, so when I say that I'm sending it, I mean it. However, the only issue that I did have with this car, and why I haven't just swapped a new motor in, is because this particular motor, unlike the other K20s that I have, those are all built to stock. Only supporting mods like ARP Hestas or Inline Pro in this case, ACL bearings and so forth, but those are basically stock motors with just supporting stuff to take the power. This one, however, is bored out. I forgot how much over, and it's lower compression because of the big blower. I was trying to run it as hard as I could on 93, so I lowered the compression. I think it's 10.5 to 1. And this particular setup, even though it was extremely fun and powerful, it had no knock on pump. I believe it was this particular setup was pushing 22 pounds of boost. With that 1320, I'll be probably pushing 17 or 18 pounds of boost, because I'm not going to max it out. The only way to max it out from the I think it's 2.8 pulley. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, 2.8 pulley is by installing a larger crank. Currently, I have the K20 C3 crank pulley on this one. So that combination there will give me around 16, 17 pounds of boost. Now, however, this combination right here, stock C3 crank with the, this is a 3.2 pulley because it's a larger blower. This one I was seeing about 20, 22, 23 pounds of boost. I could also make more boost with the combination of pulleys combined, but the main reason that I went with a 1900 was to be able to make more boost, but with colder temperatures. So I was going for efficiency. I can turn this down a little bit more with a 3.5 pulley and basically make the same horsepower as the 1320. However, I didn't want to do that because then it was going to be too close, and it was too close to comfort. So I just wanted to have the correct amount of boost with the efficiency, and that's what I went with on this current setup. Obviously, that's going to be a different setup. That's a lighter car. This is a heavier car. So in the long run, they will both perform the same because of the weight and power. But that's going to be way more fun than this one in the long run, because the stability and handling of EM1 is way better, in my opinion, than a FA5. Even in that one out there, the FG2, it is supercharged, but I haven't done anything other than installing a supercharger. It has no cooling. It's got 3.5 pulley with a 1320. That one is super fun, but sometimes it can heat soak, so I don't push it too hard, and I cognizant of that car because that's all stock airbox, stock intake, stock exhaust, everything stock. Is just a blower on the engine, and it is fast the way it sits, but it could be way much faster. But because that one is an emergency car, even though I have that new car over there that I've been having fun with for like the past year and a half, that one is also fun. But these are my babies. These are my two, I almost say the word funnest. Oh, I finally stopped draining, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing that. But you guys know what I mean. You gotta have your toys. This didn't happen overnight. Took a lot of work, a lot of years, and I'm able to have fun with these cars. Some people say, "Oh, get this other car." I love my little Hondas, so that's what I'm going with. So we'll continue on teardown. All right. In addition to draining the engine coolant and the engine oil, I need to drain my aftercooler. So we'll simply do that by removing this lower hose right here and draining the coolant out of the aftercooler. Alright, or intercooler, however you guys want to call it. This thing's got so many names, I don't even know what to call it anymore. Alright, so we're going to move on, and I'm going to drain the supercharger cooling system. I wish I had a drain cock right here. I can just make one while everything's apart. Just drill a hole and put a drain cock on there, but I'll decide that later on. But for now, I'm just going to pull this hose, let everything drain down. Alright, so now we're going to move on and to remove the upper radiator support. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the fastener. So these two right here, this one, and this one. I will not undo this one because this whole thing will come up with it and it will release the radiator. And there's another one back here. Alright, same thing on the other side. It's going to be these two right here, this one, and the one back here. And then I will not take this off because it's adjusted. I don't want to undo that adjustment. So what I'll do is I'm going to take this clip out and undo the catch for the release wire, and I'll just leave it hanging here. But I will take this whole assembly off the car. And as mentioned, I will be removing this release cable, so you just gotta push it in, and then on the inside, once I remove it, I'll just unroute the hook on the inside and it should come right out. Sometimes it can be a pain. Oh, and also don't forget to undo the front latch sensor, part of your alarm. Make sure you plug it back in, and now I have view of the way the cable's routed. I can push it out and boom. Alright, I've done it many times. It can be difficult, but it's not. And just tuck it out of the way, because I'm not removing the radiator from the car. I'm just, well, I mean, I might, but I'm more than likely not going to remove it. I might remove the radiator. Yeah, because it gives me more clearance for the motor to come forward and come up. But yeah, it's not hard. It's easy to remove this piece. One thing to take note is that when I installed my 1320, it was a Magnuson unit. It didn't clear this lower section, which all it did was had a spot where this locked into place and it was held. So I just cut that off so that my supercharger would fit. But that's here or there. It doesn't compromise the integrity, and I don't really care that I cut that, because modification world, right? My next step is going to be to remove my homemade intake system. So this is a J37, and I went on frozenboost.com and I bought this coupler that gave me the diameter for the pipe that I ordered and the diameter for the J37 throttle body, which I forgot, but that's a specific coupler. And then I bought over here a 45 and another 45 and some metal pipe, two pieces of metal piping, and one of them I cut. And then I got a K&N air filter. Some people say that this is too small and restrictive, but if I'm registering 22 pounds of boost with this filter, I'm pretty sure I'll be fine. Might need to clean it because it is a little beat down, but that is my my what you would call cold air intake. I did use the this other 45-degree bend right over here, the rubber part going through the body, because that way it will fit through there without me having to cut, modify anything. So the coupler itself, since it can get into an oval shape, it fit perfect down into that hole. All right. And then obviously with this kit, I got my water lines ran through here and so forth. But once we get to those other stuff on assembly, I can explain better. All right, so next thing I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to remove my homemade cold air intake. All right, so next step I'm going to take is to remove the radiator. The radiator, all I'm going to do is disconnect the passenger side fan, driver's side fan, and I will be undoing this hose right here. Just an FYI, if you guys need the part number, 70783. This is from a Honda Accord. All right, so all of y'all getting the hybrid racing one and whatnot, just get the Honda Accord, it costs less. All right, anyway, moving along. So I'm just going to undo this right here, and then undo the hose from the thermostat housing. I have a RSX Type S K20 A2 water pump housing. I mean, sorry, thermostat housing. Reason being because the stock one faces up for the hose, and as you can see, there's a supercharger on the way. So I changed to the K20 A2 one, and it goes downward to give me that the hose coming down. I did utilize the factory hose, and all I did was take the bend out a certain way and then cut it and then fit it the factory hose. All right, but I will be disconnecting that from there, and I will also disconnect the radiator temperature sensor, and then it will just come right out. And all I will have to do is just grab it and lift it once I undo those two hoses. Alright, I still got my factory hose clamps on my radiator lines, radiator hoses that is, and I used this, I left it on the range, so it's a little rusty as you can see, but it's not seized. But what you have to do with these, if you do it properly, is that you grab it and you get it over that little hump, and it will stay open. All right, you can see I can move it freely. All right, and when I reinstall these, simply because I want this hose has already been pinched by this clamp, and what I like to do is I like to line up the previous markings once it's on, and I put my finger on it, and with a flat tip, all you have to do is come on top and push down, and it'll lock it in place the way it was. All right, that's how you're supposed to use the factory hose clamps. All right, just giving you a quick tip on that. But usually what I do is that I just lock them up, move them on the hose, and I just leave them there. All right, I'll be doing the same for the bottom one, which is a little different angle, so I have to push it for, I don't know, you probably cannot see it, but right here's the clamp, and I will be doing that from the front, so I have to reach my hands in there and loosen that one so I can release that lower hose. So that I will not show, but with me showing you the top one, you get the point, and then I just show you removing the radiator once it's undone. Alright, the lower hose is loose, and what I like to do with these is that you got one side that's wet, and you know the hose around the neck is going to be dry. So what I like to do is start moving it like so to get that fluid in there, to loosen it up, and then it will just come out. Be mindful that sometimes they may be stuck, and also remember that because of the shape, there's still coolant in here. So what I like to do is I like to bring the hose up to drain that coolant that's in that hose back into that radiator so I don't spill and make a mess. Alright, so now I'll be doing the same thing with the lower one, and then I'll remove the radiator out. Okay, now that I undid the lower hose and the upper hose and the connections, I should be able to lift it up, unless I missed something. I have modified this car a lot. I may have something holding something in somewhere, but as of right now, it should literally just slide up and come out. What I'm going to do, I'm going to reach for that lower hose and the upper hose just to grab them, and I should slide right up. And I want to just hang it. Yep, there we go. Let's see that my lower hose is hitting my bypass, and bypasses, for those of you that got superchargers, know that they can be fragile, so I gotta be careful with that. You don't want to break that. And yep, everything's loose. It's set for the retainer for the lower sensor, so I'm gonna try not to damage my radiator and loosen that freaking retainer for my wire because I forgot it. Right. I love these things because they get into tight spaces, and with the bend I'm able to do a lot of things. But okay, I undid the retainer for the lower switch, and now we continue. Now this radiator's been out of this car about 20 times, so one thing to be on the lookout for is with your AC condenser, you might scrape here, and you can see on this other side where I always scrape. All right, it's not going to hurt anything as long as you don't penetrate it, but just be careful with it. Just an FYI. Me, it doesn't hurt it. Yeah, I scratch, and I could be more careful, but since I do it all the time, I forget and I scratch it, but it's not going to hurt it. Alright, so once the radiator is out, I'll show you what I mean about my thermostat housing. For those of you that got an 8th gen, you know that it points up, not down. So that's for the entire assembly is from a RSX Type S or just base model RSX. They're all the same, but that's what I have there to clear the supercharger. You can see if I had it facing up, it wouldn't clear, and I couldn't install my coolant hose. So that's one modification I had to do. So moving along on the removal, the next steps that I'll be taking, and they will not be in this particular order, is that I will be removing the belt, I will be removing the alternator, I will be removing the AC compressor, but the compressor I'm just going to leave it sitting down here so I don't drain it. All right, my hose on like a regular 8th gen is bent this way so that I could clear the supercharger and not have the line going across my belt. So I bent it down that way. It's a little difficult to get to this fill point sometimes, but I can manage, and that's just part of modifying to install a supercharger. But I still will be removing this alternator. I'll be removing the AC compressor, and I might remove my tensioner because I don't want it to get scratched. All right, it's a pretty nice unit, and I would like to keep it looking good. On this side, I will be undoing, well, the supercharger is also going to be coming off because I don't want it on here. I don't want to scratch it. You see, I got a little scratch right there. But I'll be undoing my reservoir hoses from my cooler, which is down here, and I will be removing the battery. This is a hybrid racing battery relocation kit. It used to have the factory battery tie down, but I had this one laying around, some cheap one, and I thought it looked cool, so I put it on, but it's there. And some of the things that I'll go over real quick is the way I routed my wires. So my ground comes from the battery to this point right here on the mount, on my half-sport mount. And from there, I have another wire under it going to the point on the chassis, all right? So I can have that good ground, and also have, because that's not where they go. So this is the way I routed it to have a good grounding source. And from here, I have a backup going from this point up to the factory location up here, just to make sure that the original grounding point still has a connection to where all of this should go. All right. Now, for my power wire, all I did was move it down, and you got to be real careful because it's really close. You don't want it to touch anything. All right. But it's on the right position so it can clear, and once it's covered, nothing will arc with it. All right, just a quick note on that. There's a grounding spot that was back here that I did the same thing. I ran a wire. You see it on this side. All of these used to be behind the where the battery relocation goes at. So I moved it to this end, and with this wire I jumped it from its original location back to here and bolted it up. So I maintain the factory connecting spot, but I'm able to clear the way that the battery relocation kit will mount. So I relocated the ground here, but it still has continuity to its original location. Why? Because Honda designed it that way, and I wanted to have a connection to it. Alright, that's just something that I did because this wire wasn't letting me install my battery relocation kit properly, and I wanted to have a flush mount, if you will. Alright, we're not really going to talk too much about my water pump situation here because I am supposed to be swapping it to a bigger one. This is very small, as you can see. It's like super tiny, and I want faster flow, and I will also eventually figure out how to put a water tank here for more water capacity, and I'm probably going to run dual freaking heat exchangers and so forth. But for now, we just concentrated on getting the car running again, because there's a lot of modifications that I was supposed to do to this car that I have not done yet, like my fuel return. I just got the rail with the pressure and all this stuff, but all of my fuel return stuff that I got put together has not been installed. I do have it. They're all over here somewhere. There's my factory modified fuel pump carrier with a Hellcat fuel pump, and it's already plumbed and ready for fuel return. But that would be a future. And also I got this oil catch can that I will be adding because I want to have some vacuum in the engine when it's a high boost for better piston ring sealing and stuff like that, you know, race stuff. But we're not worried about that right now. We're just trying to get the car running. But yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm going to start on doing all that stuff, and I will be removing the engine with the entire wire harness on it. I'm not taking the wire harness off the engine. I'm just going to unplug the wire harness from the ECU. The ECU will be coming out, and there's another connection, which I think is this one, that I need to undo. There's a connector right under here, but that's why I have to remove the supercharger, because the supercharger itself, manifold and everything, is on the way of the connectors down there, and the starter. Starter's not coming out, but to undo this connector, I need to remove my supercharger because the way I routed my wire so nothing would short out and get damaged with vibrations and so forth. But we'll continue to tear down and keep moving forward. I didn't show it, but I know you guys should know how to remove the belt. But however, if you don't, for this one it's a 14 mil. You just put it on the tensioner, and you put pressure on it, and with your other hand you just take it off. All right, the way that my current setup is put together, it allows me to undo my belts this way. Some people have different belt length, different belt configurations, and you have to loosen this because this has an adjustment that goes down. I don't know if you can see it there, but you can see it will move up and down and give you the extra slack if you need it. All right, but yeah, and then once it's off, then you just gotta completely remove it. A lot of people ask about belt sizes. This is my current freaking part numbers. All right, for my current setups will vary. So just because this belt works on my car doesn't mean it'll work on yours. Different supercharger pulley, crank, blower pulley, crank pulley, and the adjustability of this have different configurations that you can put together. Some people route their belts differently. Like they'll go down to come up instead of coming straight and then up over. So different ways to route this. All right, I have my preferred method of routing, and this is the belt that fits my routing. But don't take my belt size into consideration when trying to put one of these together. In the meantime, I will continue to remove the belt, and then I'll move over to the alternator and the AC compressor. Alright, so I decided to take off first the supercharger because I don't want to be fighting with the supercharger on the way. So to remove this supercharger is fairly simple, even though it may look and sound complicated. There's 8 bolts holding it down to the manifold. The only hard one is this one right here because the bypass is on the way. So I will do that one last because I will be turning it as I come up. So I'll leave that bolt in there, but I will do the other 7. I will be removing my fuel rail out of the way because my ground is also on the manifold. A lot of people use their ground over here, but because Honda put their ground on their factory manifold, I like to keep my ground on my aftermarket manifold. If that makes any sense. So, and I like to keep my wires in the original sheath. So that's why I have that in there like that. And it's a pain to get to this lower one because of the way my wiring is set up. But I will undo the injectors, move this rail as high as I can so I can undo that the bolts on the top. And once I redo those, undo those and undo the bottom ones, then all I have to undo is unhook the throttle body connector, which I can just do that right now. And come on, don't be a pain. There we go. And I will undo the brake booster line and the evap line. Once those are out, I literally will be able to just lift it, move it out of the way, and I'll put it down there for now. So let's get on to that. So my manifold has 10 mil bolts, but the M10s, if that makes any sense. It's just the way that it was designed by the one and only Jose Mercado, who does these. There's other companies that try to make these, but they have failed. These are the only good kits in my opinion. I have everything torqued down to 20 foot-pounds because I seem to be like a happy torque for all this stuff. So I try not to overdo it. And like I mentioned, I'm going to have my fuel injectors on my way. I'll just unplug them so that I can have more access to the bolts. Now, if I'm able to remove the supercharger without the fuel rail, I'll leave the fuel rail on the manifold. But to remove the supercharger itself, I need to get this wiring out of the way, as you can see. This is what I was talking about. I just need to lift this up so I can have access to that ground. That ground, if I'm not mistaken, does have a 12mm nut, because that's the way I did install some studs, which you will see once I take this off. But for now, let's take the stuff that is accessible and edgeable. There is a rubber seal between the manifold and the supercharger adapter plate, and you know it has to get crushed when you install it. So that's why I like to torque it to 20 foot-pounds, and I go like on crisscross patterns and all the way around multiple times in order to ensure that the torque is even. Now I need that 12. Because what I did was I installed those 12s up here that I'm about to remove so that I could use them as put studs in there. And the purpose is so when I put the supercharger in, it doesn't fall off. So basically it holds everything for me. Alright, where's my magnet? Now, my ground wire I had to lay wider to fit that 12, but now it's out of the way. And then, like I mentioned, the last one I already loosened with a 10mm wrench. So it should be, yep, spinning. And it's going to come to a point where it's going to touch my bypass. So it touched the bypass and it's loose. So what I have to do now, evap and my brake booster hose. Yes, my evap does work. I like all my emission components to be active. Alright, and I'm pretty sure that should be everything. Let's try it out. Yep. Okay, as I mentioned, these are the 8 hold down points, right? So this is the studs I was talking about for holding everything together. And these I have so when I just put the blower on, it doesn't just slide off. You can see the where the gasket seals at. And this is the gasket I'm talking about. It's a one-piece gasket. So like if I were to remove it, there's a section somewhere here where it's not like one single piece, it's just one single strand. But it's hard to find it. But yeah, this is the seal that seals everything. You do not put RTV on this. You use this rubber seal. A friend of mine took this car to a shop and they RTV this with Honda Bond to that plate. And even with a 10-foot pry bar, it couldn't freaking undo it. So it was a horrible day. He almost damaged his manifold trying to remove the blower. By the way, see, now I have access to all this stuff, so I'm going to remove this and start working my way down. And then I'll undo these lines and my slave master cylinder, the battery, and so forth. So we continue to the teardown. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take this off first, and these are 2 12s, and that will be fairly simple. And I'll just break it loose by hand first. I know you cannot see it with that camera view, but it's just where your idler, OEM idler pulley goes, that's how this bracket mounts up. So it's just those 2 bolts. And that's how you remove this tensioner. Now for the alternator, there are 14s, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. No, they're 12. So same thing, I'm going to break them loose by hand and use my ratchet. Now on my last assembly, everything in here, I should undo my battery first, since I'm already going to be messing with the alternator. So I'll undo the battery ground. Yeah, there's a lot of people going to say, you should have disconnected the battery first thing. I got it. I understand why. But as I'm turning this down, there really wasn't a need to undo the battery until now. And battery disconnected. Alright, so continuing on. Yeah, loosening the alternator. So, I mean, there's no place for me to put the camera, so all I'm doing is, earlier I undid these two. Alright, and now I'm undoing this one and these two lower ones, and then I have to undo the ground and the retainer right here, and I'll just grab the alternator out of the way. Now the alternator is right now being held on by the lower bolts because they go in deeper. So the 3 bolts are out, and now I'm going to undo the retainer clip. And now I have to undo 10mm power bolt that goes to the alternator. So I like to put the 10mm on the alternator back so I don't lose it. And now I can remove it. So what I did was, obviously undid the 3 bolts. I pulled this plug right here, the little 2 legs with the with my bent nose needle nose. I just went and pressed them and pushed it out, and then I undid the 10mm right there. And the alternator is out. The AC compressor, all I'm going to do is undo the 4 bolts and leave it hanging in this little cubby hole, if you will, right here. And then I'll continue to undo. I have to undo the coolant lines for the heater core. I have to undo the fuel line. I haven't undone that yet. I think I might remove my fuel pressure regulator because I don't want to damage my fuel injectors. I got a fuel injector clinic. I forgot how many cc's. I think they're 1700 cc's maybe, but they're too big for what I'm doing. But we can talk about that on another day. So yeah, obviously I gotta undo my shifter cables, and all my shifter cables and my clutch line, all that stuff is stock. All I have is an Exedi stage 1. And it's holding what I'm assuming is 450 plus horsepower. I don't know exactly because I don't have a dyno tune, but I will be undoing the grounds and to include this other ground over here. And then I will undoing the exhaust, the axles, and I should loosen all the motor mounts and grab my cherry picker and pull this thing out. So we're almost there. Alright, so I decided to move on to the bottom and start undoing the things that I need to do down here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take these 2 nuts out and this bolt out. That's going to allow me to pry the ball joint out of the lower A-arm, which will allow me to swing the strut assembly out of the way to take the axle out of the hub, and then I will use a pry bar down here and pop that axle out. Now on the other side it's going to be fairly similar. However, once I undo the bottom, what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a brass drift and I'm going to put it right there on that side of the axle, and I'm going to hit it with a hammer and push it out. and then I'll pop both axles out of the way, and I'll undo the lower mount bolt, just the bolt, because it's gonna come up, and I'll start, because once the engine's out it's gonna be a pain. I will remove the lower bolts for the transmission and the inspection cover. Alright, so better review these two 14s right here, this one and this one, and this cover plate. I'll move it out of the way. I'm also going to be removing the front lower engine mount, which is these 317s and the big one. I'll move the mount completely out of the way on this one. That way, once I undo everything on the bottom, I'm going to place a piece of wood down here and a jack, because then I'll go into from the top. And obviously I'm going to be jumping around, but I'm just explaining. I'm going from, once I have the engine supported in the bottom with a jack, I will bring my engine hoist out and strap everything down, and that's when I'm going to undo those two motor mounts, and I'll lift it out of the engine bay. So just in case, I do the bolt first and then the nuts. And like I mentioned, I just pry the lower ball joint out of the A-arm. Now it's out, so the transmission may leak a little bit, but it's fine. Air's popped out. I will pull it out of the axle. And out of the transmission. Just like that, it is out. And out of the way. Alright, just like the other side. Also a little easier. And like I mentioned, I'm going to bang the axle out, but first I'm going to get it out of the hub. I'm going to use a brass drift, and I'm going to place it right here on the axle and bang it out of the way. Those were love taps. I don't know how yours may be tight or not, but I did not like go Flintstone on it. And once it's out, you just pull it out and get it out of the way. Try to keep my stuff in certain positions. I have a format of where I place all my nuts and bolts and tools. Keep things organized, but now the axles are out. Now onto the lower mount bolt. It's a 19, and if it's hard to take out with the impact, you can see right there, I'll use a bigger impact. And it is hard, so bigger impact it is. Now this is the one I use for stubborn bolts. I try to work my way up on tools, not use the big ones right away. I try to use the small and work my way up. But the point is, have the right tool for the job, because this is a little too strong and it can damage things. And just like that. That's it. It's a strong one, so that bolt will stay back here. Now the front motor mount. My these are all 17s. This one right here, it's got a pin that goes through, so I will use the impact on the other end, take that out, then I'll take out the 3 bolts, and those will be out. Alright, so now we're going to take the bolt out of the lower mount. And it is out. Like I said, this pin needs to be in that hole. A lot of people forget about it and they damage it. So whenever you install and remove, make sure that this is inserted into this little slot right here. If you notice, the bolts on my engine come out pretty simple, and it's not because of lube. Yes, I do lube my bolts, but I make sure everything is what I call on a free neutral position, and then I tighten everything. I don't tighten one thing at a time. I tighten everything after everything's been installed. Now, these sometimes can be hard. Those are lubed. Alright. Let me see. Yeah, I need an extension. Sometimes extensions take some of the power away from the impact, so I prefer not to use them, but it's either that or doing it by hand, and I don't like doing things by hand. I try to use tools whenever possible, especially power tools. But here it is, and the bolt's out. Now the mount just slides out, and with everything I like to keep the bolts organized, so I'll put those here. The mount will stay here for now. And take this apart, put it back so it doesn't get lost or mixed with the other stuff. Alright, so other than the exhaust and the 14s I'm about to take out, should be almost everything I need to remove in the bottom. Just for good practice, I like to take this out so I don't lose it. And I have my little thing that keeps everything together for specific areas. But yeah, I'll do that next, but I'm going to work on the lower bolts for the oil pan. So those are 10s and 14s. Let's get them. Alright, so like I said, the lower transmission hat mounts, because I won't be able to put the engine on the engine stand. I like to remove the stuff from the bottom while it's still in the car, because I don't want to be fighting with it later. And be mindful that all of these bolts were torqued on the last installation. That's why most of my stuff comes out fairly simple, and everything that I can lube, I lube. Some people will say that lube will change your torque spec. Well, I like my stuff to come off easy, so I'll worry about broken bolts in the future if it ever happens, but so far I've been lucky. I haven't had any issues in the past 24 plus years of me working on engines and cars. Alright, now that that part is complete, I'm going to move along. One thing that I forgot to do when it's too late to do it was to, I like to turn the windshield wipers upward and then turn the ignition off so they can stay up, so I don't have to take the arms off to remove this, because I don't want a chance I'm breaking my corners. But what I'll do, I just remove the arms and then remove this and then the underplate. However, I'm going to start with I'm going to continue, with the removal of the battery and the removal of the ECU, which are fairly straightforward. I'll see if I can get an angle here. Okay, we're situated, so we'll go ahead and continue. So first thing I want to do is remove that. Alright, now to remove the battery, the ECU, that out. And the ECU. Now when you undo these clips, you gotta push down and then back, and you gotta be careful because I've seen a lot of people break these. So I take my time, I work my way from this side that way, because some of these hold the other one in place, but once they're all loose, then you can properly undo them. Actually, it's from this side that way, so from the front going towards the back to remove them without breaking them. And boom. So now ECU out of the way. I'm going to remove the power cable, which is right here. Those two should be 8s. Yep. Because like I mentioned, I'm going to take the wire harness out with the engine together. And this was going to go out with the car, with the engine. So you got a clip there, and then you have another connector back here. Same thing, you got to be careful not to break the connection. I totally have forgotten how to take that one out. I don't want to break it. Just don't remember if you got to go down or up with it. But you know what? I'll do it after this is removed, so I have better view. But this part of the harness is going to go out with the engine. This stays with the car. Next thing I'm going to do is going to remove my water reservoir. Hopefully the camera can capture this part, but I'm going to go ahead and continue. So one of the things that I would like to mention is a lot of these nuts and bolts and brackets, I place them where I can reach them when the car is put together. So that's why I'm able to tighten and loosen and disconnect a lot of stuff without having to fight with it. I'm going to undo the pipe that goes to the water pump. And also when I do these, I like to tighten them back down so they don't the hoses, so they don't become lost. And it had a little bit of water in it. But now I can take this out as an assembly so it can be out of the way. So as you saw, there was the steady screws on the ECU, and then these plugs you gotta push down here and pull back on these. Work from the front back, because if you see, they get held by each other, and if you undo this one before this one, you can force this and break it. All right, so you don't want to do that. And then I'll undo this one right here once I get a better, clearer view. But for now, it's just certain things back so they don't get lost or crushed or broken. And now we're going to, let's see what I want to do next. I'll undo this hose. That one's going to stay with the car, and I will do my my clutch line and the grounds. If everything fares well, I'll be able to finish disassembly of the motor in time to drop off the engine, the new engine block with the pistons to the machine shop so they can match it up. Okay, I need to undo my power wire for the water pump. So if you can see, the way I ran my power wire is that little connection there. I just hooked it up, added a fuse to it, and then down there is a relay which comes from the inside, powered with the ignition, so my water pump kicks on. when I do the cooling system on my coupe, I'll do a video on how I run these wires and power up the water pump. So yes, my shifter is all stock. No cool guy bushings, no cool guy freaking wires, and it works just fine. A lot of people have shifting issues, and I'm 100% sure it's got nothing to do with this system right here. Now usually to remove the shifter cable retainers, I use a big flat tip, but don't feel like looking for it. This one should work. I go from the back, I twist. Once I twist that, I go to the corners, I go up, just turning, and then once I have enough room at the bottom, I can pry it up, and the clip is out. Same thing from behind, turn. Alright, what I do with my shifter cables is that I remove them and I jam them back here with the brake booster, just so it can hold the cables out of my way when I'm working on the car. Alright, all of this wiring will stay with the car. Now we're going to do the grounds. Alright, so just like that, the grounds are undone. Hold this one downward. My ground cable fell. Put it over here with the battery. And now we'll be removing. Alright, so I undid my fuel line. I still have the factory connection here and an adapter for my fuel rail. So all you do is press these two tabs in and then pull the line out. Since I couldn't do it with one hand, I didn't get to record it. But same thing with the fuel line. I'm just going to slide it back and get it towards the back of the brake booster and try to keep it out of the way, like so. I eventually will put it behind there, but I'm trying to stop it from leaking. But for now, that's the way it's going to sit. So next is going to be this evap line right here and these two cooling lines, which I'll do after I remove this cowl, because I ain't trying to fight with that right now. But on the top, other than the motor mounts and that one ground back here, everything's almost. Oh, I still need to pull the AC compressor, so let's do that right now. But let's see if I can get it. I already broke them loose, so this should be fairly quick if I can see it. And like I mentioned, this will stay in this little cubby hole out of the way. Just like so. Before I remove the engine, what I'll do is I'll remove the windshield washer neck, filler neck, and that will give me more room to slide that more forward and get it more out of the way. But yeah, we're getting close. So all things considered, I should be removing the cowl next, so let's get ready for that. Alright, day 2. Usually it will take me one day to pull the engine out, actually a couple hours, but since I'm recording, it takes a while. So next thing I'm going to be doing is removing the cowl cover. And like I mentioned earlier on the last video, well, the last section if you will, was that usually I turn the ignition on, I hit the wipers and have them come up and take the ignition out, the key out of the ignition before it goes back down, so I don't have to remove these. But since the battery's out and the fuel lines are undone and all that stuff, I'm just going to take the arms out. So to remove these arms, all you got to do is grab these covers, take them out. Then you're going to have a 17mm nut, which you will remove. Once you take the nut out, what I like to do is I'll lift the arm up and I'll move it up, and then it just comes right out. Alright, so now I'm just going to place them up here. That way it doesn't scratch the paint. And same thing with the other one. This was a little bit harder, so like I said, you're just gonna pull towards you, and then it just comes loose, and then simple. You know what you're doing. You don't have to fight with it, beat it, and get tools. Little quick trick, it comes right out. So the next thing is going to be to remove the plastic cover. Alright. Let me remove these. I just came back from the parts store. I was dropping off the oil and fluids. So the next step is going to be to remove these clips. You have that one here, and that one right there. So these typically break. So well, like I mentioned before, all I do is keep them on hand. All right. There's multiple ways to remove them. There's the brute strength, there's the tool, which I have here somewhere. Let me just grab it. Alright, so what I have is this tool right here, which is a little too wide. I could trim it down because the one that I used to have specifically for this I broke, but you want to do is get under it and just come off. So that's one way of removing them. Or another way you can remove them is by prying up on the plastic, but then the clip flies away and you have to hunt them down. But here it is, not broken. So, you know, up, loose, not broken, perfect, and put them away. Now the next part that I'm going to do once these are down is that there's clips all over here, a couple between the middle and so over here. So what I do, I just grab and pull up, and sometimes I'll bang here while pulling up on here to release it. So we'll show that next. Alright, so like I mentioned, grab, pull up, bang it down, and it'll separate. Once it's separated, you can start pulling up, but you gotta be careful because sometimes these clips break. These I don't have that many of. I need to buy some of those. Just like that. Now you gotta disconnect the windshield washer behind. You will see the area where it's connected. Just grab and pull, and it's disconnected. There's fairly simple. That's why you're disconnecting right there. And put it off to the side. These are the clips that I'm talking about. So you have the one here, 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 and here, right? Usually I get, when I go to junkyard and I see cars, because I am missing one right here, and if I see these clips, I take them, because not that I can't find them, I just haven't really looked for them because I rarely replace those, but these are starting to look pretty frail, so I should be buying some sometime soon. But the cover is off. Alright, following that, we're going to remove this brace. A lot of people take that brace off. This is a structural component of the car. It's like a sway bar. I wouldn't be taking that off, but that's just me. Either way, we're going to do 10 mils. Got one here, one right there, one down there in the middle. Same thing on this side, one in the corner, and one right there. You also have these two 12 mils right here, so you can see, and on the other side as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove all that hardware, being careful not to drop the stuff in there. I've been lucky that I haven't lost any of those screws yet. But you never know. First, I will start with the 10 mil on an extension to reach the back one. With this one, I reach in and I push it towards the socket so it doesn't get dropped. And I might jinx myself, didn't I? But I can see it, so I should be able to get it with the magnet. That's what I get for saying I never dropped it. Before I totally lose it, this is my magnet, so it's got a magnetic tips in the end, and also it's a retriever tool, so I can use it multiple ways. But as I can see it, I use the mechanical hand part of it and grab it and secured. Alright. Next I'm going to do are the 12 mils. That's what I'll do with this. Alright, now to remove it, because you do have these plastics on the end. It can't be in the way, but just tilt it a little, it'll come right out. And it's out. So now that those parts are off, you can see where I'll be able to bring the engine in a little location. I've done this many times. Sometimes I scratch right here. This is a K20, so I don't have to fight with it too much, unlike a K24. So now I have access to grab these hoses easier and disconnect them. And now I can see the clip that I need to disconnect. So it looks like this clip in the back just needs to come up and then it should slide forward. So we'll see. Yep, there we go. And slide it forward. And it's out. Now, it does have a clip right here, which I'll remove with my needle nose. And then this wire harness will be with the rest of the harness over the engine for when I remove it. So for now, I'll take that clip out and get ready to undo the exhaust, because I don't want to do the coolant lines, because there may be some fluid and they'll drip down. So I'm going to do the exhaust first, and then I'll do the lines, so in case anything drips, it doesn't fall on me. Alright, so the next thing I'm doing is going to be to disconnect the header. I don't know if you guys can see them, but 1, 2, 3, 4, those 5. That's going to be 2 nuts that I have, because I have the OEM hardware. 2 nuts and 3 bolts at the bottom. I'm going to remove them by inserting my impact from back here in my hand, because it'll fit up to those points, and also from down here I will come up with the impact and just hit them with the impact and get them out. Previously, when installation, I added anti-seize and everything on there, so it should come out fairly simple. The hard one is the middle lower. I add a little extension to my impact and it comes right up, but the other ones should be fairly simple. I'm going to try to see if I can somewhere place the camera so you guys can view, because it's kind of dark in there and I don't have a light. But either way, I'm going to try to see if I can get it so you guys can see, but the process is fairly simple. You should be able to reach up there with no issues, and I use the impact to remove them. Alright, the last one, that's where I use the extension because of the way the headers are routed. and the header is loose. Well, hopefully that clip turned out pretty well and showed you guys how to, you know, get the impact in there. I got different size impacts, and the first bolt wasn't coming out because I had it on tightening versus loosening, but that's here or there. That impact doesn't have enough power to strip those bolts. It will strip every smaller bolts, but not those 14s. So I'll just try to tighten it, but it's not going to affect anything because I usually tighten it with the impact. But yeah, so all 5 bolts came out and now the header's loose. So now I'm going to focus on the rest of the things that I need to remove. So all I have left in order to start getting ready to pull the engine out is going to be these hoses back here, which I'll undo and just jam back here to be held with these brake lines and stuff like that, like you guys see. Here's my fuel line, shift cables, and then the brake booster is gonna be it's gonna stay there. The evap is gonna be pushed back there, and the 2 hoses for the cooling for the heater core I'm gonna jam up there as well. Once those are out of the way, then all I have to do is wrap up the engine with my my ratchet straps, and I will take this bolt out. There's gonna be a procedure for this because I'm leaving this bracket on. It's gonna have to be, basically it's gonna have to go down. I may remove the mount from the transmission if I don't have enough room or to play. I just don't remember how I did it last time. I may even remove my battery bracket if I don't have enough room to tilt the engine. On this side, same thing. This is going to stay in the car. I'm not going to remove that, but I will be taking this motor mount out and that ground you see right here. Once the engine is you know, lifted with the engine hoist, then I'll be able to move, twist, and bend all that stuff that way. But for now, my next steps are going to be to remove that ground and those hoses, and those are fairly simple things to do. This hose right here is going to be a pain. I'll show you why when I'm working with it, but this I might move out of the way, which is real simple. Just unclip it, slide it out, so I have better areas to grip with my needle nose. But for the most part, we're almost there to pull the engine out. Alright, here we go for the hoses. So what I'm going to do, get flat tip. I'm just going to move this thing out of the way. Alright. And to get better play and movement, and to ensure I don't break stuff, I'm going to undo the reverse light switch, because if you guys know, this little plug tends to break a lot on these cars. So I like to undo it so there's no undue stress on the cable. It's just a pain, but last time I installed it, I looped it, so it should come out fairly simple. There we go. It's just a pain, like I mentioned. So there's free, and I'll undo these cables also so I can move this assembly properly out of the way, because the main thing is not to pull on the electrical harness and damage the connections. There we go. And there's one more that's holding this stuff from moving, and that will be the head temperature sensor. I'm going to undo that one as well. There we go. Alright, so now I have more free movement of this bracket. Alright, see a little, want to go ahead and undo these as well, just for safety reasons. I don't want to, there we go. That's going to give me enough clearance for me to get to this stuff. This is not hooked up to anything. This is my MAF. I should, well, I'm going to clean it because I never know what I will do with these in the future, but this is my MAF airflow sensor connector. I don't use it on this car. Alright, but I should protect it just in case something happens that I need to use it. Alright, so now we have more access to this area where the wires are not on the way, and I won't be forcing this out of the way and damaging connectors. So I'm going to start with the painful hose. So I use this, and it can be simple, but this particular bracket is double, it's got double tension from Honda, and I always use the same one. And I found that with this tool, it's easier to remove. So that's how I do it. I just grab everything, slide it back, and undo it. But a lot of people damage these, and then they put regular hose clamps on them, and they leak. I like to use this because the original stuff, because it works. Same thing. Move them out of the way. Let's see. There you can probably see. Same thing. Grab, slide it out. Grab and slide it out. Alright. Now what I like to do is I'll grab these and I'll start twisting them until they move freely. Because sometimes they can get stuck. And once they move freely, then I'll just pull them off. You can see this one's being a pain, so what you can do is twist and pull at the same time. Just be careful not to damage the hoses, because you don't want vacuum leaks and then you're chasing vacuum leaks. And this is my brake booster leak, hose. Same thing. Get it to move freely first. Right. There we go. I used the pliers to pull that one out. And last but not least, the coolant hoses, which will make a mess because there's still some fluid in there, I believe. So just like the bigger ones, I start moving it to get the fluid to loosen the hose. Now, because of these being bigger for the needle nose, I'll use some regular pliers. And when you do this, like I said, these are sharp edges, so try not to over pinch the hose. So just grab and start moving, and you see there it broke loose. That's perfect. We'll do this one next. I start at the edge from the inside so it can start allowing fluid to get in there, and you see how it starts loosening up, and there it's free. That's my trick so I don't damage my hoses, because when you start moving it from the back, fluid starts getting in between that, and it will make it so it can slide out. And there's the water. There we go. And more water. So now these are going to leak. It's fine. The goal is to try to get them out of the way as possible. These will stay right there, but now everything from behind the engine is free. Will be good to move on to the next steps. Slave cylinder. Just there so they don't get lost. And all I'm going to do with my slave cylinder is grab it and jam it down into this corner out of the way, just like that. Alright, so now we're going to move forward. I'm going to disconnect the ground. One thing to take into consideration is that because I had a lot of these laying around, I've used them, but this is aluminum and they don't make a good contact. So whatever you do, always make sure that your actual connection is touching, it has a good grounding point, and this is just holding it together. But I've had instances where the bottom wasn't a good grounding surface and the bolt needed to be the actual ground, and it didn't make a good ground. So be cognizant of that, because grounds are very important on Hondas. And the last thing you want to do is have your car not run because you have a bad ground. All right, so now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna take this out of the way because I need this hose to move so I can move that AC compressor to a better location. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna pry up right here and try to get this clip out of the way. And it's not working, so we'll use this tool. If it breaks, like I mentioned before, I got spares, but this one survived. And the removal of all this is simple. Just slide it out and pull up. It comes out complete. Get out of the way. And now I have the room to move the compressor because the hose is out of the way. It's more malleable. Now I can place the compressor in a better location for me to pull the engine out without it interfering. Alright, so my next step is going to be to prep my engine lift. So for lifting the engine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap some ratchet straps in certain locations the way I always lift them, always making sure that I'm not crushing wires or certain things, and I'll show you guys some of those things that I keep out of the way. Like, I don't want this crushed, and this can have tension on it, so to be safe I'll just unplug it. There we go. That way if I do by mistake put pressure on this, it won't extend these wires and rip them out of the socket. Alright, so things being free are better than them being connected and having pressure points. And when I'm hooking up the engine, I'll have stuff out of the way. But there's multiple ways you can do this. You can hook just right here on this lift point, which I've used before, that's why it's bent. And for example, you can hook another one somewhere in this area, like on, because once this is out, I can put this nut back on here and use it as another lift point and have a lift point from here to there. Or you can have a lift point here and you can use this, which is also a lift point. And I appreciate it back here because this is another lift point right here. There's multiple ways, but more than likely what I'm going to do, I'm just going to wrap a strap around the back and a strap around the front and make sure that it's not crushing anything important, like like a thermostat. You don't want that getting crushed because it's plastic. I will route it so it could be basically a straight shot through here, so it comes straight up this way and so forth. And I'm going to try to get the point to be as center as possible so there's less of me having to tilt and push and pull. I have decided that I will be removing the battery bracket. Quick thing about the battery bracket is that I mentioned that I moved my ground. This ground right here is a typical issue on these cars. They rust out and people have a lot of problems, but this is what I did to relocate the the power or grounding source from, even though that needs to be the one, I moved that whole assembly back over here. Where you at? Right there. See if you can appreciate it, but that whole assembly is right there. And this wire is just making sure I still have continuity with the original location. And the reason I did that is because this harness right here was being crushed by the battery right between here. And I didn't like that because it could break the wires and cause corrosion and so forth. So that's what I did to still maintain the correct grounding spot, because that's the Honda put it there for a reason. I just moved the wires and gave it a piggyback to it so I can have the ground still having the good grounding source and so forth. All right, because like simple things like the main ground goes here, but since I relocated to here, I still jumped it over just in case. Even though it's the same metal and everything, I want to make sure, because Honda put it there, I want to have continuity to it. It is what it is. It's how I think, and that's how I do certain things. So I have piggybacks to it and whatnot. Yeah, I could just get longer wires and blah blah, but the way I have it set up works and I like it. But last thing I want to talk about real quick is getting ready to remove the mounts. So this one is simple. You take this nut out of the way, and when the engine is suspended, I can pull this bolt out. And then this one, however, because I have my anti-lock ABS pump, I rolled the bolt from the back because I couldn't slide it from the front. And here all I have to do is loosen this nut and then slide the bolt out towards the back, and it comes out. All right, so I'm gonna get the vehicle, the engine tight, striped up and ready for lifting, and I'm going to remove the 2 mounts and then I'll lift the engine out. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be removing is going to be the battery relocation kit. Reason being, like I mentioned earlier, was that I want to tilt this way, and this is going to hit the transmission, so I'm not trying to do that. And looking at something that I wanted to do before was to run these wires in front of this, so it gives me better installation of my overflow bottle, because I always have to fight with installing it and removing it. I might look into routing these wires through the front of this, so I'll look into that once everything is out. But for now, I'll take the battery bracket out. It's currently bolted down with 2 12 mils if I'm not mistaken. So go ahead and loosen these. Right. And yeah, I remember that last time I ran that wire. Yep. Right there, and this hose, it's in my way. Boom. Alright, so this is out of the way. And my 2 bolts. Alright. So that should clear better. And that will stay out of the way, hold the wires out of the way. This should be fine. I don't remember if this gave me problems last time, but if not, I'll loosen it and then push this into that hole. You know what? I might just do it, because it might still hit this right here when I need a tilt. So that one is a 10. There you are. Should fit. Alright, so, and that was on the way. Let's get that one out. But I'll be forgetting, so I'm gonna put that screw right back there, because that's going to automatically tell me that's for the ground. And then, like I mentioned, this, let's clip it out, and boom, out of my way. It should be just fine right there. All right, so now that I think I should have everything undone, we'll break out the tool to let us know if we miss something. So I'm gonna set this up, put it where it needs to be, and then bring my straps and hook it up. So yeah. Alright, so now we have the cherry picker set up. I have my straps hooked up. Now when you run your straps, you want to be careful with all your stuff. So this looks like it may be touching pretty hard, but it's not. The tension is coming from this corner down here, straight up. It's touching, but it doesn't have tension on this plastic. So all the tension is from this corner back here, straight to it. And from there, between these 2 hoses, it's not really pushing, forcing the hoses, so I won't damage my hoses. And then it goes straight down, out and over to the transmission, right between the sensor and the shifter, and behind all of this, to ensure that there's nothing like being forced or pushed. All right, so currently is the straps are only where they have pressure, only where it's safe, and it's not crushing anything on this side. On this other side, I decided that I will be taking the mount out with the engine. So when it goes up, it will just go with the mount if I don't have any issues. Because it's been a while since I pulled the engine out of one of these, maybe about a year and a half now. So this is how I'm going to approach it. It may work, it may not. I might go a different route and just take these out, but then I'm going to have to reroute my my straps, which at that point I'll run it through the back like I usually do in through. But I might, if I do it that way, I'm going to have to take my manifold out because I don't want no pressure right here on my manifold and my fuel rail. I put this on here just to prevent it from scratching, but there's no tension against my fuel rail. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is loosen this bolt, remove it, and then I'm going to take that mount out and I should be able to lift the engine out. Alright, so like I mentioned, I have this, I'm using my ratchet wrench in the back on the what you would consider loosening position, and in the front I'm going to be loosening my front bolt. I did tighten this pretty hard last time, so but they're coming out. And the reason I do that because once I get it loose enough, I can just do this and it will just come out. Alright, once I get to the point where there's no tension, I'll push the bolt inward. Because I already took the weight of the mounts with the cherry picker. That's why all of this is moving fairly simple. Nut and the washers out, and now I will loosen some of the tension to make it slide better. That might actually have to go up. There we go. There we go. The bolt is out. And now we'll start the other side. Now on this side, once again, I'm going to take this bolt out, and then once this is loose, I'm going to lower the engine and remove the engine mount base. So same thing. I will place this here, loosen the nut. Alright, and now all I have to do is pull this bolt out. There we go. And for those saying, "And that bolt came out easy," well, like I said, the weight of the engine is being held up by the cherry picker. So now we'll remove the bolts from the mount. That one is not moving, so bigger one. Now I'm going to lower the engine to remove that mount. Now it may get pinched and not slide up, so that's where the pry bar comes in. I know the Haspers do their research on how they cut and mount this, but if this had just a little bit more, they also don't use these bolts. That's another thing. I like using these bolts because I don't want to strip the I don't want to strip my transmission hole, so I keep the studs. But anywho, let's continue. Man, am I going to have to take that mount out? I don't want to take that mount out. I always take the mount out. I just need to take the mount out. Well, change your strategy. So what we're going to do is I'll take this mount out. So it's this 17 down here, this 14 here. There's two 19s back here. This bracket's got to come out. This needs to be moved because there's another. It's a 10 mil back here. Like, I didn't want to take it out, but I done this before and I know it's a pain. I was hoping I could just take this out, but it didn't work. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this bracket out of the way. All right, here we go. So to remove the fuse box, there's a clip here and a clip back here. There's also another clip here, so it's 3 clips. So I like to do the front one first. Once the front's loose, I do the one inner towards the engine next, and then the one towards the fender last. And that gives me access to the 10 mil back here, which we'll remove next. That 10. Next, what I will do is remove, there's a 14 for this bracket that's accessible with the box, this fuse box out of the way. I'm going to do that 14 next. Once that one is out, what I like to do is place the fuse box back onto the 2 rear clips just to hold it out of the way. And I move this bracket out of the way so it wouldn't lock the bracket down. Now we need to undo this 14 right here, and that will release the upper section of the bracket. Alright. Once the upper section of the bracket is free, you can remove it out of the way. And now we can remove that bracket. Now, the bolt that is a pain is this bottom one, but since mount transitions down and the mount is up, I have pretty good access to it. I usually do it from the bottom. It's the only way I can get to it. But I think, if I remember when I reinstall this, I will do it in this reverse procedure, because tightening that one is a pain from the bottom and there's no room to access it once everything is remounted. So if I remember to do this the same way as I'm taking it off, it should be fairly simple. Just gotta make sure not to get to a point where your tool gets stuck. Alright, so that's the lower one. It's a 17, and then the 2 provided from Hasport are 19s. And those, I use this one. Alright. So these 2 come out. And it should just come out completely. And that's how you remove that assembly. I didn't want to. I was trying to avoid that, but I needed to remove this in order to get the engine out. So, I always do the same thing. Try to fight not taking it off, and I wind up taking it off. So, whatever. Alright, now I need to remove the bolt that I installed on that side so I could tilt everything. When you're lifting, you need to always be careful. There, it's loose. And there goes the camera. Try that again. So, just removing this bolt. Alright, and now we continue the removal. Let's see. Now be mindful that your header, there we go, will have those studs, because I have the factory studs in there still. It might catch. You gotta be careful. Get this stuff out of the way, make sure it's cleared. The header is catching. Alright. Alright, good on this end. Remember, when you're coming up, you need to be careful that the header is not catching the engine. Once the engine's out, I will strap the header to the firewall. Some zip ties, that way I can cut them off once the engine's back inside, if I remember. Alright. So now you're going to have things on the way. So I'm going to try to see if I can clear at an angle. Not sure, nothing that the header's still touching, but it'll be fine. Let's see where the header is grabbing. There we go. Slow and steady. Inspect, up, inspect, and up. We're starting to clear. Compressor's still out of the way. Header's not touching. Everything looks free. All I need to clear is the hood prop. Which, if you have a friend helping you out, he can hold the hood up and keep the prop out of the way, but I'm by myself. So we improvise. I won't get it high enough where I can try to slide the hood prop under it and still hold the engine, the hood up. There we go. Now we're under the engine with the hood prop. Fell down, don't want it catching on anything. Everything behind is still clear, so now we go up. Alright, looks like I'm clear. Now we come out. Alright, success. The engine is finally out of the car. Alright. Now, some people may say, why you take the wire harness off and such and such. My thing is that all of my retainer clips are still good. And to remove all of this area right here with the engine in the car, it's painful. You're gonna break this. You can possibly break the Q connections. You can break the clips. This one is I broke once. You see, it's broken. But like this clip right here and this clip right here, I'd rather remove all these clips with the engine out of the car. It's easier, right? And especially fighting with things like just to get this harness out of this corner right here, it's a pain. Especially your oil pressure sensor. It's like I just didn't want to do all that. And also, we all know about the NOx sensor, and I didn't want to remove all of this stuff while the engine was in the car, just to get to remove that section of the wire harness just to get the engine out. I'd rather just disconnect it because it's like 3 plugs I think it was, and then just comes out with it. And yes, I did disconnect some things, but those were more for the safety aspect of not breaking things, but you know, giving it room so that I can pull things away from the engine and not break anything. So that's why I did all that. All right. Places where the header catches when you're taking this out is around here, and then back here, as you can see the scratches. All right. So you know, once I go and reinstall the engine, I'll put something holding the header in this position from like this hole to around here with zip ties, just to hold it there. So when I bring the engine in, I can get it low enough and slide under the header, and it'll be easy. All right, my engine bay is dirty, so I will be reinstalling my lower ball joints and pushing the car out, cleaning the entire engine bay, and re-lubing all the nuts and holes, because some of them started to get some rust. So I'll clean them up, lube them up, and so forth, because that's how I like to keep my engines and engine bays so they don't rust out. To some people, they say this might be clean. To me, this is filthy. Alright, let's get moving. So after the current edits that I've been doing to the video, I noticed that it's a lot of footage. So I'm gonna keep this one to 2 hours and some change. So I'm gonna separate it into like different clips, if you will. So basically this is gonna be part 1, and I'm gonna make part 2, and depending how much footage is on that one, then I'll probably make a part 3, and hopefully that would be it. But it's a lot of footage. I just looked at most of it. It's about 8 hours worth of footage, and I'm trying to make it as short as possible and get all the information for the video so that it can be helpful for you guys, and you guys can see the process as detailed as possible. So for now, this will be named part 1, as you might have seen in the title. And I just got done editing that first section, and I'm gonna try to keep the rest short as well. But it was a lot of information that I talked about, and I figured that it was pretty important. So with that being said, this is going to be part 1 of however many other sections I'm going to edit and put together. And it takes a while because my computer is 2005, it's old. My GoPros are also from back then, they're old, and I'm just trying to share information with you guys. So I'm doing my best for you guys. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible, but as detailed, and showing the process. So hopefully you guys like it, and you guys enjoy it, and you guys get some good information out of it, and see that, you know, you can do it yourself and it won't be hard. The car's already put together. It's in the garage. I encountered some issues with it, but it's got nothing to do with the engine replacement. It had more to do with a broken sensor. They gave me problems on the test drive, but you guys will see in a future video. But for now, that's it for this video, and I'll start getting this one ready and start editing the next one, and hopefully I can get them out as soon as possible. Peace.